Wagwan Mandem, what are you telling me? In this video, we're going to have a look at advanced text formatting. Now, there's loads of elements in HTML for formatting text, which we didn't get to in the previous HTML text fundamentals video. Now, if you haven't watched that, I'd recommend you watch that first. Now, the elements we're going to look at now aren't as well known, but they're still useful to know about. In this one, we'll learn about marking up quotations, description lists, computer code, subscript, superscript, contact information, and more. Let's get into it. All right. So we've gone through marking up basic lists in HTML text fundamentals video. And remember there's a third type that you might bump into now and again. Now those are description lists. Now these lists are handy for sorting out a bunch of things and their descriptions, like terms and what they mean, or questions and answers to them. So let's have a look at an example at some terms and their definitions. So probably hear me say Wagwan Mandem at the beginning of every video. So let's go through those two words. So we can see here, here's the term and the description, and same here. Now in HTML it doesn't really look nice to look at, to be honest. Description lists are a bit different than your usual lists, so unordered and ordered lists. Now they use a fancy wrapper called the description lists wrapper, or the element. So this is just DL. So we could wrap this whole thing around DL and use the closing tag. Now inside of that, each term that you want to define gets wrapped in a DT, a description term element. So let's put that here. So this is what we are describing, DT, and we close that here. And I'll just do the same. Oops. All right, so already there's a bit of formatting that's happening. As you can see, the term and the description. But now the explanation for the term gets put into a description definition tag. So we wrap this with DD and we close it off. Same thing here. DD and close that off. So already we can see the term and the description, and we can see how the browser's formatting that already without us having to actually change anything in the CSS. Now it's important to note that you could have multiple descriptions for each term. So let's say if we wanted to just copy that, let's have that here. So we can have two description definitions for a term, or even two or more essentially. Now HTML also has features available for marking up quotations. Which element you use depends on whether you're marking up a block or inline quotation. Calm. So if you grab text from somewhere else, like a paragraph or even a list, you got to stick it in another element called a block quote. Now this tells everyone you're borrowing someone else's words, and you could even slap in a URL pointing it to the original source using a special site attribute. So let's have a look. I'm just going to paste over something from the MDN web docs. And we can see it here. Now, to turn this into a block quote, we would first, well, let me just create a paragraph saying, here is a block quote. And yeah, that'll be there. Now we need to wrap this whole element within a block quote. So let me just do that. Yeah, and then we need to close that element as well. Cool. Now browser default styling will render this as an indented paragraph, as an indicator that is a quote. Now the paragraph above the quotation is there to demonstrate that. Now we still need to use the site attribute to point to where we've got this information from. So if I just paste in this. So this is how to properly use a block quote with using the site attribute. Now inline quotations work in exactly the same way, except that instead of using a block quote element, they use a queue element. Now, let me show you an example quickly by just pasting this in here. So you can see everything's wrapped within this paragraph tag, and the actual inline quotes, as we can see here, is within this queue element, and with the website correctly cited using the site attribute. The content of the site attribute sounds useful, but unfortunately browsers and screen readers don't really do much with it. So as we can see here, if we go over the quotes there is no way to get the browser to display the contents of the site without writing your own solution using JavaScript or CSS. Now, if you want to make the source of the quotation available on the page, you need to make it available in the text via a link or some other appropriate way. Now, there is a site element, but it's more for putting in the name of the book that you nicked the quote from, rather than the source itself. However, nothing's stopping you from linking the text inside the site element to the source of the quote. For example, let's actually just paste this in here just to explain. So we've got a site which is the MDN page, and it's wrapped within an anchor tag. So this way you could link to the source that you've got the information from. Now, citations are styled in italic fonts by default. All right, so you'll see this abbreviation tag all over the web, as you can see here. So it's ABBR. Now, it's used to wrap around any abbreviation or acronyms. Now, when including either, provide a full expansion of the term in plain text on first use, along with the abbreviation element to mark up the abbreviation. Now, this provides a hint on how to show it off and also tells everyone what the heck the abbreviation means. Now, if slapping the full name next to the abbreviation doesn't make much sense, and the abbreviation or acronym is a short one, you can put that full name within the title. So it's in the value of the title attribute. So for example, here, when we've got HTML, we've written out HTML alongside it. However, with something with an abbreviation like this, it doesn't make sense to then write the full thing right next to it. So this way we could add it into the title attribute, and if we hover over the element, we can now see the full title or the full name. So HTML's got a special element for marking up your contact info, and this is called the address element. Now, this wraps around all your contact deets. Now, for example, let's just put that here, and let's just close it out. So let's say my name and where I currently reside. So as you can see here, the address tag isn't too fussy. So let's say if we wanted to wrap all of this within a paragraph tag, we could easily do that. And let's say if we wanted to actually add some, line breaks. Let me just copy and paste that. And yeah, you could even have an unordered list in there with, let's say 2. So we could have telephone number. Let's just do that. And, let's say email. Now, let's say if you have a page that you would actually want to link to that has all your contact information there, you could easily do that by just using the href attribute on the anchor tag to link out to that page. Now, address isn't just for any old address. It's got to be for the contact info related to the stuff that you're writing about on that page. So slapping it in the footer to show everyone how to reach you is fine, or even to put it inside an article to show the author's details. But essentially, you don't want to overdo it and use this for a whole list of addresses that haven't got anything to do with the page. Right, so sometimes you need to have the text a bit higher or a bit lower than the rest of the text. So this is where Superscript and Subscript comes in. So let me show you this example. So as you can see here, now let's say to mark dates, you'll need to use the superscript. So this needs to appear a bit higher than the rest of the content. Now, let's say for, I just had a cup of coffee now. So let's say caffeine's chemical formula is here. Now we need to use subscript in order to use this number sort of underneath the text. Now you can see it here. The superscript is just used by doing SUP to mark superscript, and for subscript is SUB. Alright, so here's the lowdown on marking up computer code in HTML. So I'm just going to paste an example here. And you can get this in my GitHub repo in the description if you want to follow along. So let's go through them. So we've got the code elements, which essentially you could use this for any bit of code. We've got the pre element. Now this is for pre-formatted text. So this will keep all the spaces and everything that you have exactly how it is. So as we can see here, it includes the space that we have in the HTML, as opposed to code doesn't. Now, we've also got a VAR for variables. Now, yeah, this is for marking up specific things or variable names within the code, as you can see here. Now, we also got the keyboard element. Now, this is used to put keyboard inputs, and it has its own styling as well. And then lastly, we have the sample element. Now, this one's for showing the output that pops out of software or program. So HTML also provides the time element for marking up times and dates in a way that computers can understand easily. So let me paste an example just to show you. So as we can see here, we have the time element, and we also have a date time attribute. So we can see how each one is being rendered here in the browser. So why is this useful? So we can see that we have dates here written in different formats. Using the date time attributes lets us have the date standardized so that the computer knows what the date is at all times. So for example, in this one, it's a standard simple date. So we've got the year, the month, and the date. You can see it here, 20th of January, 2016. Now, if we want to just put just the year and the month, we could do that by just putting the year and then with a hyphen and the month. So we can see here. Now, the same as month and day, if we just put the month and day, it'll know that we're only inputting just those two. Now, we could do the same for hours. So that's time, hours, and minutes. So we've got 1900, or 7:30, essentially. Now we could even take it a step further with seconds and milliseconds as well. So we've got 7:30, the second, and milliseconds. And we could also do a date and time. So here we've got the 7:30 p.m. and the full date. And here it can be seen in the date time attribute with here and the time highlighted here. This is the same for the date and time with the time zone offset. So let's say if you're a few hours ahead or an hour ahead of GMT, Greenwich Mean Time, you could put this plus, and then the offset is there as well. Now, if you want to put a specific week number, so let's say the 4th week of 2016, you could do the year and the week with the number. All right, so that's the lot on HTML's text semantics. Remember, this isn't everything there is. We've just covered the most important bits and the ones you'll see on the web the most. In the next video, we'll be looking into the HTML elements you use to build the different bits of a HTML document. Safe.